Hey, good evening, folks. Thanks for joining us for Season 1, Episode 3 of Cambridge Community Conversations. I'm Bill Christopher. I am the President and CEO of the Dorchester Chamber of Commerce. Tonight, I'm joined by two business leaders that have been on the front lines helping to support our businesses before, during, and after COVID. But before I introduce Susan and Amanda, I do want to thank our sponsors for the program, Cambridge Association of Neighborhoods, also known as CAN. WHCP Community Radio actually hosting us here tonight in their studios. All the flashing lights there behind me in terms of their stuff. The Dorchester Banner and actually the Dorchester Chamber of Commerce. The objective of this series is to provide topics that the public may otherwise not get a chance to hear or learn about. So that's what we're looking to do, is to bring you topics that you, again, regularly might not see or read about. If you have a topic that you would like for us to cover over in this series to go forward in a future episode, you can certainly use the chat feature tonight to actually put that out there, and we'll take that into consideration, or you can contact any of the sponsors and let us know about it as well. While I'm talking about chat, the chat feature, you'll see that scrolling across the bottom of the screen right now. That's actually how you get to ask questions of the panel this evening. We will ask some prepared questions that were proposed by the sponsors, and we'll get those in first while you guys are thinking about questions. But if you use the chat feature, it could either be found on the bottom of your screen or it could be on the upper right-hand side, depending on how your screen is configured. But if you click the chat button and you start to type, what you're typing, everyone will see. That's on either Facebook or YouTube. They'll see your comments coming in. You can also use the chat feature to just make a comment. If you don't have a question, but you'd like to comment on something that one of us says, or something you want to make sure we know about, feel free to use that as a comment or ask a question. We will do everything we can to get to all the questions that are asked, but if we don't get to your question while we're live on air, we will follow up with you offline to take care of that. So again, be thinking about the questions you may want to ask either Susan, Amanda, or myself. Tonight, the topic is discussing the impact of COVID-19 and the impact it had on local businesses. It has been an interesting several months. We haven't experienced anything like this pandemic in modern times. Obviously, pandemics have happened throughout time and throughout history, but in modern times, we haven't really had anything like this, and it's a worldwide. And so as a result, a lot of things that have happened on the fly, and response around the country and around the world has been very different, which has made things difficult for businesses. And one of the things we learned quickly early in the process is that we knew less than we actually knew. So there were much more unknowns than there were knowns. And even several months into this process, there are still many things that we don't know. There are a lot of folks out there, especially if you're on social media, that will tell you they know everything. But quite honestly, if you listen to the experts, they'll tell you that we're still a long ways away from knowing and understanding the full impacts of this, or even exactly the methods for spread and the other things that go on with it. So it has been an interesting time for the business community and folks around. Impact to local businesses has been widespread. We've actually had some businesses that actually did well during COVID and actually expanded and grew. So just because of demand and things that needed to happen to meet what was happening, all the way to we've had businesses that have already closed that realized they just couldn't make it with the closings that happened, the loss of business, that they couldn't make it, and we've got everything in between. So businesses that are on the edge of making it, businesses that have kind of maintained. But we're working with all those. Unemployment is actually way up, but at the same time, we've got businesses that can't fill open positions. So we're actually still struggling with that. That was actually an issue prior to COVID. We're still working on that. The government has thrown trillions of dollars at this to actually help. There have been 4 COVID bills come out of Congress, and we don't fully understand the impact of that over time, but we know right now is actually helping many of our local businesses stay afloat and keep themselves going until such time that we get past this. So we're looking at that. In Maryland, we're clearly in stage 2 now, which helps a lot. And actually, when I say clearly stage 2, is a 5 o'clock this coming Friday. Another set of businesses will come out. At that point, most businesses in the state can be open, but most of them are operating at 50% capacity. So that is really not a long-term strategy, and most businesses cannot operate at 50% capacity for very long. Almost every industry that's out there is working to try to figure out how to adjust. So basically, individual businesses are doing it, but also whole industries and folks like chambers and economic development, tourism are actually trying to help these businesses figure out how they're going to operate going forward. looking for silver linings. The good news that may come out of this is that these businesses that survive will actually be significantly stronger than they are now, or where they were going into this, and they'll actually be more resilient, and actually be better suited to deal with disasters that used to seem really, really bad, like hurricanes and floods, fires and earthquakes. Will actually be in a much better position to deal with those types of disasters because we will have built up some resilience and understanding how to keep our businesses going. Before I get into introductions, I do want to make one acknowledgement and thank you to the health department led by Roger Harold, Angela Grove, and Dr. Casey Scott, and the rest of the team there has been amazing to work with. They were handed quite a challenge without a lot of notification, obviously, as this came in, and they've actually led the effort in terms of getting things done in the county. And in my opinion, we're in a much better shape than many of the counties around us. If you look at any of the measures that are out there in terms of how we're making progress. Roger's a great leader in that department, and he's all about community health, community safety, and that's really what his job is. But he also understands that in the context of how businesses have to operate and the pressure that businesses are under for doing this. In exchange for all the things they've done for us, I agreed to do a quick commercial for them tonight. And so basically, Angela and Dr. Scott, this is for you. They basically want to point out that face coverings are still required in retail. There's been a lot of confusion around that. So retail shops are still required to have face coverings for all employees and all customers that are coming in. In the salon, fingernails, pedicures, those type of things, masks are still required for both the employees and the customers, unless the mask interferes with the service being provided. Otherwise, they should have it on. And then in the restaurant world, all the restaurant employees that are going to interact with customers have to have masks on, and customers coming in to the restaurant need to wear their mask until they're seated. So again, just to keep that in mind, that's kind of the rules that the governor's put out as part of his executive order. So just put that out there for those. So again, that's what I told him I'd do that for him tonight to help out, get that word out. So that's there. So with that, let me introduce the panel, get to the folks that really are the experts, and we'll get some questions for them. So first, I'm going to introduce Susan Banks, who is the Director of Dorchester County Economic Development. She's been a great partner with the Chamber and actually the other businesses or the other organizations in the county, as a strong advocate for businesses. Susan, thanks for joining us. Can you give us a little bit of what the role of county economic development is and what your a day in your life looks like?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the invite. I'm happy to be here. So if you're not familiar with economic development, our role is basically to provide a healthy environment where businesses have what they need to thrive, expand, and to relocate here. We want to grow the economy and expand the tax base. We want to create opportunity for employment and inspire innovation for startups, especially out at the Eastern Shore Innovation Center. So how do we do that? We do it through technical assistance. We help businesses through access to capital, site selection, business planning, workforce training. We help them navigate through state and federal tax incentives. It really depends on what the business is. Businesses have individual needs, so we try to meet them where they are. That said, a typical day, there are never 2 days that are the same. And I was thinking about this. I just thought I'd go with today because today seemed like a typical day for me. It's always busy, and I more than likely reach out to our partners like Tourism and Main Street and Chamber. I work with a business that's having a little trouble with some state contracting. I have another business that's going through a patent process. One that's relocating into town, looking for a bigger space. I'm working on a marketing campaign, and I actually welcomed a new resident to town today. He's a recent college grad out of Georgia, and he's a new employee at one of the businesses at the Innovation Center, and he just rented an apartment downtown. So we're excited about that. A typical day is high pace, really rewarding. We have an awesome business community that I love working with, and most of them are just so easy and help me along the way too. So that's it.
Cool. Thanks, Susan. Thanks. So next, real quick, I want to introduce Amanda Fenstermaker, who is the director of Dorchester County Tourism. Amanda wears a lot of hats, actually, in the area in the role of tourism, and joke with her occasionally is if someone isn't upset with her, she probably hasn't done anything yet today, because she does a lot of stuff, and tourism is tough. It's hard to make people happy with what you do. Everybody wants to see something different. So Amanda, can you tell us a little bit about the role of tourism and what's involved in a day of life as a director of tourism?
Sure, yes. And thank you so much for having me here this evening. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with everybody and be a part of this amazing team. Um, the main goal of the Dorchester County Tourism Office is really to develop our tourism industry. And we do that in two primary ways. One is through marketing. And through the marketing, we have a paid media campaign and we have a public relations campaign. And then we monitor all the social media, the I Love Dorchester Facebook page, our Instagram page, and of course our website, Visit Dorchester. And then we also have a program called the Maryland Heritage Area Authority, the Heart of Chesapeake Country Heritage Area. And it's through that program that we are developing products that are in the heritage tourism vein that people can come and see. So, providing people more reasons to come to Dorchester. So, a typical day in my life would be um, establishing all of our marketing campaigns. So, where are we marketing? And we're in outlets such as the WashingtonPost.com. We've done some interesting things with them. We've used Comcast, we're on MPT. Um, and so we really look at the analytics and the results from our marketing campaign to determine whether or not that is the best way to spend our money. And that takes a considerable amount of time. In addition to that, we're always thinking of new ways, new messages, new creative, new photography, and just new ways to reach new customers and stay in contact with our old customers. So just want to encourage people to follow, if you're not already, the I Love Dorchester Facebook page. Go to Visit Dorchester. It's a great resource. Try to keep it really up to date and become an advocate for the tourism industry.
Great. Thanks, Amanda. So now we're going to take a few questions that were brought forward by our sponsors. And again, if you guys have questions, start teeing those up and getting those in so we can get those ready. But for the first question, I'm going to shoot this over to Susan. Susan, can you tell us about the Business Resource Group and how it helps to support the business community?
Sure. So the group started about 2015, I don't know, about 5 or 6 years ago. And it consists of the Chamber, Tourism, Small Business Development Center, Cambridge Economic Development, and Main Street and Dorchester County Economic Development. So we would come together about once a month and we would share our ideas and share what we were working on. We would make sure that we weren't duplicating any efforts and pitch in to help one another. We just wanted to make sure that businesses in the community were receiving the best resources available. And like I said, we would meet once a month until the pandemic hit, and then it became once a week. So the services we provided changed big time, right? So our main function actually changed to share information in a coordinated response. Our worry was that there was so much information going out that we might put out something similar to another entity and that it would be interpreted a little bit different. So we really wanted to make sure that we were pushing out the same thing and our message was the same. And it was easy for businesses to kind of understand what we were putting out and it made it easier for them to make the decisions that they would need to make once the pandemic hit.
Cool. So, and again, being part of that group, I know some of the things that we did, and you just talked a little bit about the types of services that we provided, but, we did some things. I guess we did the webinar series, we did some newspaper ads, we did a bunch of social media posts and so forth. Is there anything else that you can think of, either Susan or Amanda, because we're both involved in that we were doing as part of that group that we think this audience would like to hear about?
Yeah, I mean, that's the same thing. I think we started off with the ad placement that actually went for 3 weeks. And of course, staying on top of the ever-changing world was difficult, and every week the ad placement did change a little bit. And then the webinars that you have mentioned, we highlighted state and federal funding, the paid sick leave, HR regulations, face coverings, and then we actually assisted each other with our own projects. Like Bill, when he spearheaded Feed the Front, Amanda had her own webinars going on Main Street with the alfresco dining, and I was helped greatly with the grant program. So the United Front, we came together to help each other as well as the businesses.
Cool. That and actually brings us up to the third question there. Can you describe the grant program that you rolled out today? Actually, we just saw that heading out, so you had the ability to provide some details for folks so they know what to do.
Sure. Yeah, we're really excited, and the timing is perfect for today. We rolled it out this morning right before noon. County Council voted on it last night. So we have a grant relief program that is established to help small businesses with employees of 50 and fewer. Okay. So the priority will be given to businesses who have not received any state or federal funding. And then the remainder of the applications will be reviewed on a first come, first served basis. The funds will be $3,000 grant plus $100 per employee up to 50 employees. The funds can be used for payroll, rent, mortgage, operating expenses, inventory acquisition, working capital, PPE, sanitizer, any normal operating expenditures that would be eligible. Funds for capital improvements and personal expenses wouldn't be eligible. And after you receive the grant, we ask for a report of how you used it with receipts and stuff. But eligibility and applications are found on our website, and they're also found on social media. We're really excited about this, and I'm really hoping that businesses that haven't been helped will go ahead and apply for it. The application is fairly simple. The applications will be open until June 30th, and then we'll go ahead and review them and start sending out checks.
Great. Thanks, Susan. And we'll come back in a few minutes to talk a little bit more about some of the other financial programs at the state and federal level. But before we do that, I want to jump gears just a little bit and jump back to Amanda and talk about tourism. And can you share some of the financial data that is related to the impact of tourism for the county?
Sure. I mean, a lot of the financial data, what we will experience, we just don't know. It's a waiting game. We'll have to see how the rest of the year pans out. And was on a call today with my colleagues around the state in Prince George's County and in Baltimore City and Montgomery County, where their circumstances are actually quite a bit different than ours. And it was a little bit surprising to see, their situation with the convention centers and large meetings not being booked. So ultimately, I think that when you look around at what other counties are experiencing, are actually sort of well positioned to make a pretty nice comeback. But even at that, there's going to be financial issues. And for example, if you look at the 4-month period between March and June, a little over $2 million in tourism tax, that's lodging, restaurants, and other businesses and services, was generated in Dorchester County last year. And when you think that's a 35% loss of the $5.8 million that we annually bring in tourism tax. So when you think about that, you put that over this year, right off the bat, there's 35% of what we would usually bring in that we pretty much know that we're not going to get. And so the economic impact for this is going to be substantial. And we just don't know what the reality will look like moving forward. And so we just have to keep on doing the best we can and be creative and think outside of the box about how we can reach new audiences to come and spend their time and money here.
Okay. And I think what's interesting about that number, that $2 million number may not seem like much, but that's actually just the tax on what people spent. So, I mean, so basically you're looking at tenfold that to generate the tax, and then the money that those folks spend on other things that are not, that don't show up in tourism tax is all lost. So tourism is big for the county for a lot of reasons. And so make sure that folks understand that it's a huge financial impact if tourism doesn't come back. And the work that Amanda and her team do, and the rest of us working with them to try to help do that, it's really, really critical in terms of where we're at. And so the next question then would be, what actions have been taken both locally and at the state level to help encourage the return of this tourism so we can get those tax dollars and the rest of the spending back into the local businesses?
Right. And I mean, Bill, you're absolutely right when you say that that's just the taxes that are generated. And we, really try to, last week or so, we issued an article in the newspaper. Maybe some people saw about the story of the $2 bill that traveled through the community. And when we think about how that visitor spending really impacts everywhere, in the restaurants, in the gas stations, at the Walmart, at the seafood market. And so, really, you're absolutely correct in saying that we're only looking at a portion of the economic impact, and also what that means to us with people buying second homes and coming here for the weekends, or even people staying in Airbnb or in the third party platforms. That is not currently reflected in that tax. So you're absolutely right in saying that. And I thank you for pointing that out. But, in the early stages of COVID, it was very hard to understand what the tourism office's role would be, because we are at our core a marketing agency, and our job is to get the word out about coming to visit Dorchester County, and we're in this odd predicament of not being able to do that. And so the very best thing that we could do was partner up with our agency partners in the business resource community, and to find out how we can help the businesses, how we can just be hands-on and think outside of the box and share what things that we're learning from other people in the community. There were some other destinations around the country that did some interesting things with much larger budgets on social media. And we were very active on social media with the I Love Dorchester page, just trying to keep up with everything that all the closures and cancellations, et cetera, et cetera. And also when people did virtual events, just making sure to get the word out about that. But we did, as I said, we do have a marketing campaign, and we changed some of our messaging. And one campaign in particular was with MPT, and we used some of our beautiful B-roll of the Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge to create a video encouraging people to stay home now, but come, keep us in mind and come to visit. And I think maybe we have that.
Yeah, we can roll that video now.
Yeah, great.
So I don't know about the rest of you. That would make me want to come here. I'm actually from here, but I'm saying that I want to come here. So that's pretty cool. And Amanda just touched on it, but one of the things that tourism did that was really awesome throughout this, and they took on a extra burden for this, was keeping their website current and accurate with what was happening, specifically with our restaurants, but also with retail and other areas. So if you haven't been to the website to look at it, they've done an awesome job keeping that up. We've all been feeding it. We all agree that one source of truth was great. And it was great that Amanda volunteered to do that. So she and her team actually took on the brunt of that, but they did a great job keeping that up to date. The restaurants know how to do that. There's, in addition to the posting on Facebook, there really is, if you haven't been to the site, to go take a look at it to see, it gives you a lot of good information about what's happening with the restaurants and actually in the retail space. So next question is for Amanda as well. And actually, we kind of were talking about this. I was on a joint call today with all the chambers on the Upper Shore, and obviously we talk a lot about what's happening, economic development, and what happens on the shore, and how things are a little different than here. So so we have a question here that says, we know we've never experienced anything like this, right, in our lifetimes. We mentioned that earlier. It's the pandemic like this just hasn't happened that we've been around. So how do you think tourism is going to recover compared to some of the more recent downturns that we've had in terms of, from, in recent history, kind of in our lifetime or in our parents' lifetime, what we've seen? You've seen the parallels, and how do you think we might actually recover?
Well, it's such a tricky question. I don't think there's an easy answer to this, and I was spending a lot of time thinking about this today, and really about the history of Cambridge, and when it was thriving in the 50s, and then into the 60s, when Phillips Packing Company was employing so many people, and the downtown was bustling with all the major shops, and we had a lot of employment. And then when Phillips Packing Company was purchased and Consolidated Foods closed up shops, we saw an extreme amount of unemployment, and then the subsequently the struggles with keeping downtown businesses in business. And so when I came back to Dorchester County, because I'm actually from Vienna, Maryland, downtown looked very different. It had just a few shops, and Canvasback was the one restaurant. And so what I see is that overcoming adversity has been in large part due to passion and enthusiasm by dedicated people who love it here, and just refuse to give up and keep working toward a common goal. And that really is the trend of what I've seen of all of our peaks and valleys over the years, with the development of downtown. And then also, when I think about the Committee of 100 and the development of Salewinds Waterfront, which brought in the Hyatt Regency Chesapeake Bay, and the Nathan of Dorchester, and the Choptank River Lighthouse. And, then fast forward to more recent history with Ironman Maryland and the Harriet Tubman Visitor Center. And so in all of those examples, what I see is people who come together that really are diligent about the work that is to be done. And nothing has ever been easy. And I don't expect that this recovery will be easy. But I think that we will see a lot of people who are coming out of COVID wanting open spaces, and wanting what we have, the assets that we have in spades. And we're already seeing that coming with all the people coming for snakehead fishing and kayaking and biking. And so we have a real opportunity to showcase who we are. And it's really refreshing, because we don't have to recreate ourselves to be who we truly are. And so I feel optimistic about that, even though I know that there will be challenges and things that we just don't know. And especially when, when will the customers feel safe doing some of the things that they used to do? And the loss of our events. We have so many wonderful events throughout the community, and we just don't know when they'll be able to come back and what those will look like. So long-winded answer, but I really think that we have some great things to focus on, and that people are interested in them now more than ever. And that while there will be challenges, we will overcome them.
Great, cool. So that kind of leads into our next question, and I think I'll direct it to Susan, then back to you, so that you guys are both working on this together. But can you touch on the trends that you're seeing? You just touched on them a little bit, but the desire for open space and how we're going to benefit from that, and some of the things you guys are doing to take advantage of that, and the program that you guys are putting underway to kind of recruit not just tourists, but also businesses, right? Bringing residents and businesses into the community that'll be here, that'll be, bringing in significant tax revenue to both the county and the city. So Susan, I don't know if you want to take first shot at it and talk a little bit about some of the things you're working on, and then we can bounce it back to Amanda.
Sure. Yeah. gosh, like back in March, I was watching a webinar, and it was for economic development and tourism. And they said, the rural communities they might have an advantage coming out of this pandemic. And I kept listening, and they said, there's going to be a desire for open space. And I thought, well, we have open space, right? So this is something that we already market. And the more I read and the more webinars I took, it just was reoccurring over and over and over again, this desire for open space. I started talking to Amanda. I'm like, Amanda, we got to get in front of this. This is something we're already doing. Like, what we need to maybe reshape it a little bit, but we could use this for tourism and economic development. And that's kind of what we did. So the low population density combined with the open land is most of the Eastern Shore, really. But that was the main thing that people were searching for, especially in the beginning of this pandemic. So we started thinking about it, and we came up with an ad campaign called Find Your Space. And it's a digital campaign, and it just started. So we don't have any of the results back yet. It's going to go through the summer. But the idea is if you click on the ad, you'll go to a landing page on the Economic Development's website. And from there, you can just kind of explore all that Dorchester has to offer. And Bill, do you have any of the images? Are you able to put them up?
Yeah, we can pull those up. Yep. There you go. There's one of them.
Yeah. So you could go to the Hyatt, you can bird watch. And there's another one you could launch a business, you can launch a kayak. So you can find your space here. You can start your business. You can buy a home. You can spend the day. We just kind of wanted to put it out there again, similar to what Amanda said, to remind people that we're here. And then to also target people that were already kind of thinking about it, right? There are those people out there where maybe I'll retire early. I've been wondering if we should buy a second home. Those are the people that are jumping now. So I've talked to realtors, mortgage brokers. I've actually received a few phone calls already at the office where people were already thinking about it. And now that the pandemic has hit, they're ready to roll. They're ready to jump. They want to come. They want to know what we have. So it's a timely ad campaign. I'm excited to see where it's going to go. We have to be careful because we don't want to invite the entire world here at once, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'm very optimistic about it, and I can't wait to get some of the results back. But yeah, that's where it came from. We just figured we already have these assets, and we just need to put them back out into the community and reshape it a little bit, and we'll highlight our brand awareness, our public awareness, and roll with it. And I think it's actually a pretty good start.
Cool. So, Amanda, what would you like to add to that? Because I know you guys have been working on this and getting some things done, and what you think you'll see out of it from the tourism side.
So in the same way, we're definitely focused on, amping up our marketing campaign in July. And we're going to be looking at the content of our website with our search engine optimization and making sure keywords, many of the words that Susan already used, to make sure that those are in our website. So that when people are doing their Google searches for open spaces on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, what pops up but Dorchester County. And we're going to be doing a whole lot more with user retention on the website. So when people come to visit Dorchester, we're going to be able to see what they're interested in and then reserve them ads again that get them, that are based on what their interest is. And so we know that it costs a lot less money to retain visitors or people who are already interested than it does to go out and find new customers. And so I'm really excited about that. And really what we're seeing is that open space messaging is so important, as we've already talked about. And my goodness, everybody who calls the Dorchester County Visitor Center wants to have information on Harriet Tubman. I mean, Harriet Tubman is, her legacy has just changed the way we approach tourism in such a significant way. And, people want to come and explore that. And so, and they were coming and exploring that before COVID, and I fully anticipate that they'll be coming back as soon as the Tubman Visitor Center is open again.
Great. Thanks, Amanda. So just a quick reminder, you see us scrolling across the screen. If you do have a question or we've generated a question, be sure to type that in. We'll keep talking at you if you don't ask them. And if we bore you to death, that's your own problem for not asking a question. So what I'll do now, and then we'll actually, all three of us can kind of tackle this, or Susan and I maybe actually can talk to it. But I want to talk about the current status of the various federal and state funding programs. And I'll actually start out with this one because it's a daily, hourly thing in terms of it's changed. So today alone, two things happened on the federal level. One, the disaster loans have been closed out for a while now, and they were only available to agricultural businesses. And today they actually reopened the disaster loans to everyone. So for any of you out there that had gotten locked out, you didn't get your EDIL loan in or EIDL loan in or processed, you now can go do that again. So if you were waiting, that is now open back up and you can go get that done. Make sure you're on top of that. There's the $10,000 up front that you can still get. That's $1,000 per employee. That is actually a forgiven loan. So it's actually technically a grant. So if you check that little box up front, you can get that money. If you're in the PPL program, though, that $10,000 goes towards the PPL. So and those of you that are in PPL would understand what that means. So if you haven't already applied for that and you think you want to do that, it is now open back up. The second thing that happened today is the SBA announced an easy form, literally easy form for filing to get loan forgiveness. It was actually a pretty arduous process to file to get loan forgiveness. They've actually created a more streamlined application for the smaller loans for you to be able to fill out to get to your bank to actually get loan forgiveness. So you can go out and find that form online. I think you can go to any of our websites. You'll see it on Facebook. It'll be in tomorrow's e-news for the chamber. For those of you that have actually gotten PPL loans, I suggest you go look at that. It may change your mind as to whether you want to go ahead and file and get this over with before June 30th. If you were actually able to use 75% of your PPL money for payroll, I recommend you go ahead and get it done, get it off your plate. If you were not, then you may need to wait and use the 24-month version of the federal program to actually spread that out and actually go to the 60-40 rule. But we'll come back to a little bit more of the federal stuff here in a second, but I wanted to kind of say the breaking news today. So again, check every day. Things are changing fairly regularly. Susan, what have you heard about the state programs recently?
So they are actually still working on dispersing funds. In early March, they opened up a grant program and a loan program, as well as a grant program for manufacturers that were able to pivot operations to produce PPE. The grant program actually was open longer than what they had money for. It actually capped out in 2 days. And I think March 26th and March 27th were the days that it actually was filled, but we didn't find that out until April. At early May, they had already approved 3,521 grants, and the loans, they had 239 loans. They haven't given me a list of all the businesses that have received them, but I did get a list of ones that were approved through them before the money ran out. So if you're one of those businesses that didn't get funding, but you're pretty much through the approval process with the state, I would encourage you to apply for the new grant funding that we put out today. If you meet the criteria, if you're a business with 50 employees and under, we will make sure that you do have priority. We do have the list, like I said before, so feel free to reach out to the office. But I called the state today, and they said the only thing that has changed, they're implementing a document sign for the applications online that are still being processed to help it go a little bit quicker. But yeah, there's really no end in sight on that one.
Yeah, great. And so back to just talk a little bit about the federal program. So the Paycheck Protection Program is still available. Actually, there's still funds that are out there. So if you didn't apply because you thought that program was sold out, it's not. So you're still eligible. So if you're still interested in that program, you've been affected by COVID. It's 2.5 times your monthly payroll is the maximum you can borrow. And it's actually a forgivable loan. In other words, you don't have to pay it back given certain circumstances. So the new rules, if you're getting a loan today, would be 60% of the amount needs to be used for payroll, and then 40% can be used for other expenses. You can't use it for expansion or growth or any of those types of things, but you can actually use it to pay rent, pay utilities, other types of operating expenses. So if you were holding off and you hadn't applied for the PPL, be sure and go do that. PPL is available both for for-profits and not-for-profits that are 501c3. So if you're a 501c3, you are eligible to apply for the PPL. I know there was some confusion about that. Some not-for-profits are not allowed to apply, but true 501c3s can apply for that. The other thing is Midshore Community Foundation still has money left in their COVID fund. So if you are not-for-profit and you're doing things for the community related to COVID, go out and look at the Midshore site and take a look at that, and you can fill out. It's a fairly straightforward grant program to get some money from there. Again, just keep an eye on our sites, the website for the chamber. Follow us on social media. Same thing with economic development, both city and county, and Main Street and tourism. We're all trying to post that and cross-post it as much as we can to keep you guys abreast of the various financial options that are out there. If at any time you have a question, you want to talk about it, reach out. Call us at the chamber. That's what we're there for. It's reach out and call us. You can get to us via email. So you can info@dorchesterchamber.org or call us at 410-228-3575. Or we're now open. The office is open. Just got to wear a mask. Come in and sit down with us, and we'll help you figure this out. Time is short, though, for both the EDIL and the PPL. I think the cutoff for PPL is June 30th, if I'm not mistaken. And Susan can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think if you haven't applied by June 30th, they'll be cutting the PPL off. The EDIL will probably go on a little longer just because as long as we're in the disaster, we're declared a disaster area, then you can still apply for those loans as they come in. We did get a question online, and this one's for Amanda. It says, are there plans for signage to direct visitors to the Harriet Tubman mural?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. And thanks for bringing that up. It's so important because good signage is good. So the plans that I can say that we have been thinking about, the mural, the Harriet Tubman mural, is one of several murals that we have located around Dorchester County on the Visit Dorchester app, although it was developed a little bit differently than the rest of the murals. But what we have been talking about doing is enhancing interpretation around the entire mural trail by creating a brochure and then signage that would accompany all of those murals. And directional signage would, of course, be included in that. Yes, definitely needed, and definitely plans for doing that in the near future.
And I encourage you, if you haven't downloaded the app that they've created for the murals, go get it, download it. Every time we have somebody walk in the office, we have a lot of, well, this year not so much, but last year we have a lot of tourists that come in when the ships come in, and just people come to town and they come in the office, and we basically help them download the mural app every time they come in, because it's actually pretty cool to hear Michael actually talk about his murals in his own voice and talk about what they are, and go find all of the ones that are actually in the county. That are out there, because there's a lot of good work that he's done throughout with the help of tourism and getting those things done. So again, if you haven't downloaded that app, I encourage you to go get it, pull it down, and actually listen to yourself. I think you'll learn quite a bit about those murals in terms of what they do. Question I thought was going to come in, but it hasn't come across yet, but I'll ask, and I'll direct this probably to Amanda. The Hyatt, obviously, one of our biggest assets, especially around tourism. Can you provide a little update in terms of what the plans are for the Hyatt, and what they've been able to share, and what we can share with the public, let them know is going to happen?
Yes, absolutely. So we just heard from the Hyatt recently. They're planning to open on Monday, June the 22nd. Blue Point will not be open at all this year, and the spa will open on July the 1st. The occupancy limited to 50%, so 200 of the 400 rooms. But we understand that there's some demand for that. So that's exciting to seeing them coming back online pretty quickly. Now, for the other food and beverage outlets, they'll follow the governor's orders on that, as well as for the pools and social spacing for distancing. And they got great information on their Facebook page at the Hyatt Regency Chesapeake Bay for just what that means and what the requirements will be.
Cool. Thanks. So it'd be great to get them back online. Obviously, they bring a lot of business into the community and into the county overall, and specifically in the downtown Cambridge in terms of keeping things moving forward. So, a question for you guys, and think about this a little bit as you answer, and either can answer it first. But what's the biggest challenge that you've actually heard from local businesses as we are now starting to emerge and are entering into stage 2?
I'll go ahead and start off on this one.
Cool.
I think there's a high level of frustration about following the regulatory changes. Some of the changes have come with little to no warning, and it's made it quite difficult for the businesses to make a quick transition. And I hear a lot, what are my rights as an employer and what are my rights as an employee? An example are face coverings mandatory, or little to no heads up for the restaurants. In 2 days, there's going to be changes. And, it has been frustrating for us too. We're all getting through this together, but I think that's probably the number one issue, is just the quick changes with no time to adjust.
Amanda, how about from your side?
Yeah, I mean, I would totally agree with what Susan said. I would also just add on to that, that one of the challenges, obviously, and maybe this is, something that everyone knows, but just how do you, as a business owner, retool, especially during the height of COVID? What can you do so that you're bringing in some kind of revenue? And I think that was very challenging for people to just have to change things on the dime. And not all businesses are really well suited to do that.
Yeah. So that's going to continue to be a challenge. And really, again, that's what we're all here to help with. So any business out there, if you want to run any ideas by us, we all are in contact with lots of folks in and outside the area, chambers outside the area, other economic development group, tourism groups outside the area. So we can bring in ideas for you and work with you and just bounce ideas off us and see what you have to say. I mean, one of the biggest challenges that I've been hearing, and it could be just because of some of the focus we have, is childcare is reared its head as being a huge issue, especially now that we're trying to get people back to work. I mean, the good news is that they announced last week they're going to start reopening these childcare centers, but we were already at a shortage before it actually started. So we know that that's a big issue for our businesses and for the employees to get them out there. It was one of the major issues as we were looking at the poverty reduction project we were working on. That was one of the major problems with actually being able to get people back to work. And now as we start talking about going back to school, which is all tied into that, Superintendent Bromwell is doing a great job. He and his staff are faced with some serious challenges, but they're bringing the business community in and bringing the community in general in, but actually really engaging with the business community to help get feedback and understand what it's going to mean in the fall. So we're actively engaged in that process, trying to understand what school is going to look like in the fall, and that really again all ties in with daycare and what our workforce is going to look like over the next couple of years, because again we just lost some time. So again, the other big challenge I'm hearing from businesses, and I mentioned it in my opening, is that even with the unemployment numbers where they're at right now, we have businesses that have open positions they cannot fill, work that is going undone because they can't get people in those roles. So we've got to figure out how to get on top of that problem and get in front of it and get our folks that are unemployed matched up with those employers and those jobs to get it done, which is, again, something we're working on prior to the pandemic. And then, again, we're just going to have to double down on those efforts coming out of the pandemic to get folks matched up and into those jobs. So let's end on a high note on this. So the last question I'll ask is, oh, wait a minute. Let's see. We did get a question come in online. We had a question about how about a water taxi in Cambridge? So who would like to take that and answer it? Amanda,
I I will just say that I would love to have a water taxi in Cambridge.
Cool.
I think that's something that we have been talking about for years, that there would be a real demand for that and a really
Mhm.
interesting attraction. So
Yeah.
I think either one of us would be happy to talk to anybody who wants to develop that.
Yeah, we've actually looked at some business plans around it. So if anybody has a business plan and want to come in and talk about setting it up, we can certainly do that. Now is probably a good time to even be able to find some funding to actually help getting something like that started. As the waterfront development, Cambridge Waterfront Development Inc. Starts to get their plans more finalized and start to do the development work down at Sailwinds, I think that'll become even more important to be able to move people from the Hyatt to the Sailwinds waterfront to the downtown waterfront to Long Wharf, up to the restaurants up in the creek to Portside and Snappers, and just get people moving around by boat and on water to move them around, help to take them across the river to the marina across the way, bringing them in. So I think a water taxi is a great idea. So anybody out there that wants to explore a business plan, we'd be happy to sit down with you and talk through it and try to figure it out. And I know Joel at the Hyatt would definitely be happy to talk to you guys about that, because it would be an interesting attraction for folks at the Hyatt to be able to take a water taxi into town as opposed to driving themselves or some other way of getting in. So I think it would be a great idea for anybody that wants to explore that. So
Bill, I'll
yes.
say we actually do have a plan going around, a
Oh, cool.
hydrogen run water taxi. I'm not sure how far along they are, but a couple months it was brought in, and they're looking into different types of funding. Since it is hydrogen run, it might be a little bit of a different plan, but people are looking. I will say that.
Cool. I didn't know about that. That's awesome. Cool. Glad to learn that. So we have just a couple minutes to wrap up. So I'm going to give each of you guys a chance to share any success story, just as a, we'll try not to be Debbie Downer here tonight, but because there are some positives that have come out of this. So so I don't know who wants to go first, but take your pick. Who would like to take first shot at it? We'll go with A for Amanda.
Okay. Well, I will say that watching the grocery providers, such as Simmons Center Market and Emily's Produce in particular, really turn on a dime, and Emily's getting opening early in the season and getting everything online with ordering has been incredible to see how they've been able to respond to that. And the same for Center Market, really meeting that need for the visitors, um, and doing it very quickly. And then just, aside from those two providers, just thinking about like our smaller water businesses like Blackwater Adventures and Overboard Paddle and Fitness, just seeing them come very early back, get back to work very early in the process and get back out on the water, and just meeting the demand for what people want to experience. It gives me a lot of hope to see those businesses successful.
Cool. Susan, how about from your side?
Yeah, I mean, I always think of the saying, never waste a crisis, right? I think our businesses are going to come out of this more adaptive and more flexible. And we've seen it in the Innovation Center. Three of our businesses were able to pivot their operations. Sunex Analytical is a hemp processor, and they have about 3,000 square feet in the back of the Innovation Center. But they have changed their process, and they are producing hand sanitizer using the same tools that they use to produce the oil, the hemp oil. So that's been really cool to watch. And feel free to call the Innovation Center if you would like to be connected with them. I Value LED is another business within the Innovation Center. And they've got a couple things going on. They're working on some thermal imaging so you could take temperature without touching, and lighting that disinfects the air. So I'm hoping to learn more, but I think they have a few projects underway. It's pretty cool. And then IES, they have branched out and they have a new business and an actual patent that's been filed. And what they're going to do is they're creating a blood test to test COVID patients that will will monitor the severity. So they'll say to you, okay, it looks like you'll probably be able to ride this out at home, or you could be in the middle stage. You might be able to be all right in the hospital or a day or two. And then there's the severe stage where it looks like you might have a prolonged stay in the hospital. And they're going to figure that out with just a simple blood test. And we hope to get that rolling pretty soon. And they're testing on samples as we speak. So I think a lot of innovation comes out of crisis, and I am optimistic that we will be we'll see some fundamental shifts, but maybe there'll be some silver linings when we get through this.
Great. Yeah, and I'll echo both what you guys said. I mean, it's actually spurred innovation from a lot of folks. A lot of our retail shops turned and quickly got their online stores on, and I think those online stores will be there for a long time and become a core part of their business. I think the community rallying around the restaurants was huge in terms of the restaurants that really didn't have takeout business before, or didn't even really weren't doing takeout, were able to pivot and actually start doing takeout. And the good news was their patrons came and actually bought that food and did the takeout when they could have easily stayed at home and not done that. And now what we need is those folks to continue to support those restaurants and those local shops, shop local. That's a huge deal. Amanda mentioned it before, talking about the $2 bill, but $1 spent locally with a local shop or a local restaurant is a huge impact on the local economy versus buying it online or buying it with a big box store. So we encourage you to continue to do that. We've been excited about what we've seen from that standpoint. So I think for the most part, there's been a lot of positive human response. There's obviously been some negative in there as well, but by and large, what I've seen and witnessed from our business community, it's been very, very positive. They've been supportive of each other in terms of helping out. Folks like Chris Agarabi, who actually spearheaded and started the Feed the Front that Susan mentioned earlier to help out other restaurants. He didn't need to do that. He was just trying to keep himself afloat and actually really spent time and worked hard to actually get that program spun up and actually put quite a bit of money back into quite a few restaurants locally here in Dorchester and in Talbot County. So things like that are impressive from my perspective. So just to quickly, I want to thank both Susan and Amanda for tonight, and actually for all the work you guys do. It's great working with you guys. It's a pleasure to be involved in a community where we can all work together like that and work together to get things done, because that's how we're going to make it happen. And again, it's fun doing that. So again, I appreciate you taking the time tonight to answer questions. If folks are out there, if you have other questions, feel free to actually reach out to us at any time. So just real quick, the next community conversation is scheduled. It will be on July 1st. It's with Ken Kozel, who is the CEO of Shore Regional Health, University of Maryland, Shore Regional Health. Ken has been, he's just put out a video today. We actually shared that, so you can go watch that as well. It's up on our website. It's on, we shared it on Facebook, and it'll be in the e-news tomorrow, so you can watch that, kind of give you an update. But if you haven't noticed, the construction has started out at Cambridge Marketplace. So that is exciting. Wendy's will be done first, by the way. So Wendy's will be done before the hospital, just to give Wendy's a plug. They're actually starting on that here shortly. So Wendy's will be up. But the hospital is underway. So Kim will come out and actually talk about that, but we'll also talk about, obviously, questions about COVID and what's it mean to the health system and with the shifting to the new facility. So hopefully you'll be able to join us on July 1st for that event and with Ken. And with that, again, I thank you guys all for sticking with us tonight. And any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us, and travel safe in the looks like stormy weather outside right now. Have a good night.